Morning. It is early morning over here at the moment, hence the stubble, the bleary eyes and the Earl Grey. Earl Grey can't beat it. Used to be coffee, but one of the detriments of ageing is that you stop to find out what you're intolerant to. Not just ideologically, but physically. Turned out I was intolerant to lactose. Very good. Cool. Much I needed. I'm going to talk this morning about faith. The reason I'm talking about it is I've set myself off on a train of thought that is a little bit possibly convoluted for many people. So if you bear with me while I ramble on, you never know, you might actually be able to pick out one or two little nuggets of gold in there, then again you may not. But it is, after all, YouTube. I can do more or less what I want within reason. Though I'm not going to put that to the test. I'm going to talk about faith because I've had a couple of examples of faith come back and, if you like, haunt me. Now, I am an atheist. I've been an atheist for as long as I can remember. I've never really looked on faith as being an important part of my life. However, in retrospect, it has. Which is strange, because I remember entering into an argument with a member of the clergy about faith. This man I'd contacted, he's quite a high-ranking clergyman in the Diocese of Southall, who I contacted about removing my records, having them expunged as being a member of the Anglican Church. At the age of 11 months, I was baptised. The ritual being designed to cleanse me of all of the sins I'd accrued, which really at the end of the day is a little bit disingenuous. As an 11-month-old child, an infant, a babe in arms quite literally, I couldn't have actually indulged in enough sinful activity by that time, unless we're talking the usual 11-month-old crying, keeping mother and father awake, wetting myself, cracking myself, what you actually expect from an 11-year-old, in which case, is it sinful? Or is it actually part of being an 11-year-old? But the ritual washing happened, and of course I was entered into the Church of England's records. The Church of England refused to allow me to undergo an anti-baptism, effectively. And they finished off their letter, this particular individual finished off his letter to me with one sentence. If you're finding you're having a problem with faith, then don't hesitate to contact me. Now, I presume he meant this in a charitable way. I didn't take it that way. I don't see any reason to. The inference there is that because I don't happen to share his faith, then I am by default wrong. Now, faith is a strange thing. Faith can be defined as belief without evidence. It can also be defined as belief in spite of evidence. But the way I prefer to think of it is wishful thinking. Despite all of the evidence to the contrary, people wish there is a God. And we find examples of this in everyday life. This is the problem. Me as an atheist, I have actually been somebody who has had a problem with faith. From my earliest days when I was a soldier, the faith that I wouldn't screw something up, the faith that I wouldn't get hit, the faith that I would actually get enough sleep, all the way right through to my emotional life. And it is actually, curiously enough, coming up to 7 years since there was a pivotal point in my emotional life. I happened to meet somebody who, and I suppose everybody actually has these little mental lists, who ticked off every single box in my mental list. From the way that she looked, to the way that she talked, to what she liked, her dislikes, everything was absolutely perfect. And apparently I did the same thing for her, at least she told me that. According to a friend of mine who was there when we met, we actually met in the context of me actually giving a display and her just being one of the people that was observing the display, a member of the audience, so it did involve her. If Nick had got between us, then he felt as though he would have actually been electrocuted. That was the effect we had on each other. The problem is, we actually had a massive disadvantage, and that became apparent the very first time we communicated, after we'd actually met. I emailed her, inviting her to look at an archaeological dig, and she replied from Singapore airport. She was on her way back to Adelaide in Australia. Now, that may seem like an insurmountable problem to some people. To us, it wasn't at the time, because we had faith. We were indulging in wishful thinking on a massive scale. We actually deepened the relationship unashamedly. We ended up emailing each other almost at times on a 10-minute basis. We phone each other. We top and tail our days. Ultimately, I ended up out in Adelaide visiting her, and the idea was I was originally going to be there for a month, but I didn't want to come back, so I ripped up the ticket. A couple of weeks after that, I had no option, I had to come back. But we had spent a time together that I hope for both of us, certainly was for me, was an incredible time. A time that we both enjoyed, and we knew each other, and we wanted to carry on. We wanted to go the whole hog, and we became engaged. We were engaged to be married. Unfortunately, that distance finally defeated us. I was back in the UK, she was in Australia. The plan was that she would actually come and live back in the UK. She lived here already. But it didn't work. We fell apart. Or rather, we didn't fall apart, we kind of exploded. And the emotional fallout from that was horrendous. I ended up as a small, tiny, almost singularity of pain. I was behind my own event horizon of agony and confusion and insecurity. I had been put there because of wishful thinking. Not only the wishful thinking that, okay, fine, I could actually find somebody who fulfilled all of those criteria, although, yeah, okay, fine, we're on the other side of the planet, but also the wishful thinking that we couldn't make it happen. We walked into it, both of us, with our eyes wide shut, instead of my usual default position, which is eyes wide open. And the reason was faith. We had faith in each other, we had faith that something would turn up, we had faith that nothing would go wrong. So yes, as an atheist, I do have a problem with faith. Not that I don't have any, but that I recognise that it can victimise you. And you can be hurt by faith. And we see this all the time. We see it in people who pray over cancer victims, who refuse medical assistance, who are willing to sit down and pray. We see it in the people who hide in churches instead of running into the bush when the bad guys are on the horizon. We see it in people who will not allow reality to dictate to them. The people who think if they can get the wedge document into education, life is going to be hunky-dory because evolution will not be taught in schools. Instead, creationism will, and then they're going to get sucked up in the rapture. They're going to end up, in some way, shape or form, just like I did, after the implosion of my engagement. They're going to end up like that. Completely, utterly cut off from the world. In their own little worlds of pain and confusion when it doesn't happen. Faith isn't a virtue. Faith is a disability. Faith will hurt you because 100 tons of faith will always be undermined by 1 ounce of harsh reality. That's me rambling again. I hope you've been able to pick out a couple of kernels, a couple of nuggets of gold from there. If you haven't, apologies. If you have, good. Thanks for watching.